What is going on, Clippers fans? Welcome to episode, what is this, 143 of the
Sure.
Clips? Why not? Of the Clips and Dip podcast. We are part of the 213 Hoops empire. Shout out to 213 Hoops, been putting out fantastic Clippers content for a very long time. I am Chuck Bockler, joined by William Updike and Adam Osland. We're going to be talking Game 5 preview, what the Clippers need to do to avoid a sweep, some of this Paul George practice footage. The Suns had an injury update, which doesn't really help the Clippers out as well. But we're live on YouTube right now at Clippers Podcast. If you ever want to check us out,
we're also on Twitter at Clippers Pod.
We are on Twitter at Clippers Pod. Got all the handles covered. But first, before we get into it, Adam and Will, we haven't spoken since this weekend. Adam, I'll go with you because you're more optimistic than the other two of your hosts, myself included. How are you feeling on the eve of Game 5?
Shockingly down bad, guys. Just saw the injury report.
Sure.
No Kawhi Leonard, no Paul George. They're still out. It's just been so frustrating. I know you said they got to avoid the sweep. I guess it's a gentleman's sweep if they lose in 5. But it's the level of frustration is extreme right now just because the injuries going on, how they've fought out there, how they've been able to battle regardless of who is available. And this Suns team is just very beatable.
Yeah.
This is a very winnable series. They got the right matchup. This was the preferred matchup, turns out, over the Sacramento Kings. If they just had one of their two guys, I think it's flipped the other way. And the Clippers are the team up 3-1. It is hard to watch this team being so undermanned and shorthanded yet again, play their hearts out and not get rewarded for it. The free throw discrepancy has been extremely frustrating for Clipper Nation. Suns with 17 more attempts in Game 4. Russell Westbrook, he has the second highest point total in playoff history without attempting a free throw with his 37 points. He drove to the basket 17 times and doesn't get a free throw. Kevin Durant drove twice and took more free throws than the entire Clippers bench or the entire Clippers roster in Game 4. It's been an unbelievably frustrating series from the standpoint of the Clippers have hung tough. They've been right there. They haven't been able to get victories the last 3 games, but they were all very winnable. And the last 2 without Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, it's hard to watch this team not get rewarded right now. I just feel for them, and I feel for Clipper Nation.
Not to add some fuel to your fire for the refs, but I'm going to go ahead and pick up a gas can here. I was reading, I was in another group chat, around 25% of the Suns' points have come from free throws in this series, which is pretty crazy to think about.
And we're not just talking about, the piece of paper with the box score on it and just a bunch of numbers. The eye test matches it. I mean, there are people who have created accounts that have gotten run and gotten followers, and I'm one of them, just because they're posting all the missed calls by the Clippers in this series or going against the Clippers in this series. It's been hard to watch. There have been some blatantly bad calls. It's not just the take foul that Devin Booker tried
people
to foul.
creating them, you mean you?
No, it wasn't me. I don't have any burners. I'm not Carl Tart.
Adam's burners are all Adam Osland because he just switched the first 2 letters of his first and last name, and he's like, "Oh shit." Will, how are you doing? Are you in a similar vein as Adam? Are you full of more rage? Where are you?
You know how before you freeze to death, they say you feel really warm.
Yeah,
that's kind of where I'm at right now. Look, I mean, I think it would be absolutely like gutsy and so appreciated for this Clippers team, again, down all of 2-1-3, to go back to Phoenix, get another win, be very Clippers. We've seen it happen before.
Yeah.
In, what I think for fans.
Play another 48 minutes.
Yeah, but I mean, like in what I think for fans is, one of the most fondly remembered playoff series, despite losing in 6 to the Golden State Warriors. I think it'd be absolutely great, but I'm just at the point where I'm liking the PG footage. We'll talk about it some more later, but I mean, nowhere that I'm seeing am I like really getting a strong inkling or indication that it's like, okay, if it goes one more game, maybe then, it's not feeling like that for me right now. So I'm kind of like, I'm a little zenned out on it, to be perfectly honest. And I'm not saying that I think a win is impossible by any stretch of the mind. But I'm saying from what we've heard so far of how these injuries are progressing, it seems like it's just a matter of time until it's kind of curtains. And that's not to say that it wouldn't be enjoyable, or that if Clippers get this win, they force another game back in LA, that maybe they could do something crazy at home, and the role players would finally bounce back in the right direction, and everything could click. The margins on these games, with the exception of that game 4, have really been quite close. So it's not out of the realm
these
of
aren't
possibility.
blowouts. We're not getting run out of the gym.
There's just been too many close games that, absolutely no fault to the Clippers. I mean, they're doing.
That's all they can.
Other than some questionable rotations and stuff in that game 4,
which we're going to talk about, but.
I think they're giving it their best shot that they can shorthanded. And I think that if the cavalry isn't coming, like I said, it feels like it's just a matter of time. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to start the podcast off on a
no. If they don't get Kawhi or Paul George back, I said it after game 2 when we got the news about Kawhi and we did the emergency podcast. If they don't have one of those guys, they can't win the series against the Phoenix Suns. And it would be a miraculous comeback, not just coming back down 3-1, but to do so without your 2 best players.
Yeah.
That's something we've never seen before.
Yeah.
And so we did get the PG practice footage today. That was the most he's been moving. Kawhi did not practice today. They're both listed out on the injury report. So barring some late injury report shenanigans, which have happened before.
Sure.
These 2 guys are out. But the practice footage, I think, hey, if we go to 6 games, maybe he comes back. He's definitely, I think he's up to his Wes Johnson portion of the recovery, where he's kind of playing one-on-one against Clippers assistant coach Wesley Johnson. But he's definitely moving more than he was. I would feel better about it if we weren't down 3-1. But Adam, where are you? We know you love practice footage, be it stationary or moving. He hates it.
Look, I was hopeful after we saw Paul George shooting around, and then a few days later he was moving and getting his cardio up. Today he looked amazing. It's still just practice footage, though. I don't know how much that means he's close to actually playing in a real game, or what's the protocol on the ramp-up process and exactly all the steps he has to go through. Is it beating all the assistant coaches? Is it like Mike Tyson's Punch-Out?
He has to do king of the court with, and then he's got to play the announcers. He's got to play Donnie Mack.
He's got to beat his guys on the podcast.
Yeah, that one we're going to talk about their podcast later, because there was an insane interaction on that, I thought. I actually have a theory that the only reason we got such good footage of Paul George at practice was because the Clippers knew he was going to be held out, but they just wanted to give some hope from the practice footage. That's my tinfoil hat theory. Will, did you think he was coming back at all when you saw that footage? Or do you think if this goes to 6, do you think we get a designation change? Not even is he going to play. Do you think the designation to doubtful?
Look, man,
I'm trying to find something for people.
I thought he was ready to come back when I saw the heart rate monitor. All right. When I saw him moving around with the heart rate monitor on, I was like, okay, we're good to go. Like the soreness and swelling, it must all be must be well enough under control. Range of motion seems good enough for him to be moving around out there. I don't think it's out of the possibility, but it's just how long can you hold on?
Right.
And then, what level when he returns. I think any level of Paul George, obviously significantly still can swing things in the Clippers direction, even if he's 51% of himself. But, the waiting game is not going to go the Clippers' way, much like the free throw disparity, which Clipper Kyle pointed out on Twitter.
Yes,
I think it's like 51. It's like plus 51 attempts. Let me bring up the comment.
It's 73-35 the last 2 games alone. 73 attempts to 35 for the Clippers, so more than twice as many.
Yeah.
For a jump shooting team. Like I don't want to belabor it. I don't want to extend the conversation, but
you're good.
Other people are talking about it, and it seems to be a storyline in this series. They made the rules. When do you see a team get 46 free throws? I guess it's fair game then to bring it up because they talked about it first.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, this is not anything that this isn't anything crazy. Like, and again, we're not getting blown out. It's not like these arguments don't even have a place, because I'm usually not on the blame refs. I'm usually not a blame refs guy. But when these are close games and you're already down 2 guys and the difference is so big, and you get these stats like that Westbrook one you said, it's hard to not be frustrated by it.
Well, and so one thing I'm going to say too is because, like, obviously, the officiating completely, for the most part, out of your control. Obviously, you can try to do a better job defending without fouling, which I do think the Clippers have, in the Suns' credit, the Clippers have had issues at doing at times. Do I think it's to the level of how large the disparity is? Absolutely not. But I think even beyond the points, which obviously hurts, like the times some of these fouls are coming, like they're total momentum killers, and you can, I mean, everybody has been chipping in so hard that you don't really see it, but you can feel a little bit of air come out of the balloon. Like,
it's got to be
single
frustrating.
Time there's like a momentum shifting.
It's
call.
Terrible. If you've ever been on a team, I've been on bad sports teams before, and it's pretty fun. But when you're on a bad sports team and you're playing a game and the refs are also against you, shit becomes real frustrating. And imagine if your 2 best guys are out and you know what I mean? Like, it's a nightmare. Like, you're totally right, dude. It plays a part in just the frustration of it.
Part of the problem for me in game 3, especially with the 46 free throw attempts for the Phoenix Suns, was some of those calls, the bad calls early on in quarters, led to them getting in the bonus earlier, to when there were legitimate calls that should have gone against the Clippers. They also were compounding things because now they're in the penalty and they're sending guys to the line. Even though, yes, that was the correct call, had they not made the brutal calls against them earlier in the quarter, they wouldn't have been in the penalty. And I saw this from Joey Lynn on Twitter. Drives this series: Russell Westbrook, 53. Devin Booker, 47. Kevin Durant, 25. Free throws this series: Kevin Durant, with 25 drives, is at 38 attempts. Devin Booker, with less drives than Russell Westbrook by 6, is at 29 attempts. Russell Westbrook, with 6 more drives to the basket so far in the series, has attempted 12 less free throws at 17 than Devin Booker. It's
insane.
The aggressor is not being rewarded on the Clippers side. It almost feels like the umps are ready to go home. When there's a call out that's way outside, and they're just like, it's 6-1.
Ball,
who
whatever.
cares? It's 6-1 in the ninth.
Yeah.
I know it's improbable for the Clippers to win this series without Kawhi and Paul George. I don't think it could happen either, them winning 3 more games without those 2 against the Phoenix Suns. But that doesn't mean it needs to be more of an uphill battle for this Clippers team. Exactly. And the heart they showed, and just not even getting calls at home, not getting a beneficial whistle ever at home. I thought my prediction was
Dennis a ref uniform. Like, what do we got to do out here? Like,
I thought in game 4 it would be the makeup game for the Clippers after so much was getting made of game 3. Totally. I've seen that so many times in a 7-game series, to where somebody complains, Rick Adelman goes after the Lakers, then Phil Jackson goes after the Kings, and it goes back and forth like that. Mostly just goes back to the Lakers getting the calls, but still, it happens, and it's not for the Clippers.
We also didn't get, we also didn't get those performances out of other role guys in that game 4, and that was absolutely brutal.
Which is so hard. Like, that's what's brutal is the thing about being great in the NBA is how consistently you can be great. A lot of these guys, random people have 50-point games. It just happens. Random people have 40-point games and stuff like that. But to do it consistently, yeah, there you go. To do it consistently and in the playoffs is what makes players like PG and Kawhi and KD and Book so good. And when you don't have that, you can get these peaks that the Clippers have gotten. We got 40 from Norm. We've had the best version of Russell Westbrook in the last 5-10 years, and it's still not enough without those 2 kind of guys. Which is rough. Is there anything else we want to say before we get into the
and weirdly, and this is like not even meant to be a dig at Russ, but post game 1, he has been the most reliable and kind of consistent guy, which again, no shade to the man, but like, that's not enough to get you through a series against these Phoenix Suns.
Exactly.
Last thing I'll say is that account I was talking about that was giving video of all the bad calls, and this may trigger some, at Playoff Shay, SHAI. But he put together a thread of them. You can just point to the piece of paper and look at the disparity, but it's another thing when the video matches it. And some of these phantom calls, like the one on Bones in Game 3. I forget who was
on
again.
KD, I think, was last game that Russ had, and they called a foul. Like,
Yeah, not even close to a foul. There's too many of those happening. So
yeah,
we can table it.
We're tabling it. We're coming up. We're going to talk the actual basketball game. We're not going to talk about the refs at all. We got ads coming up. They've been a little loud for some people. So if that's true for you, if you're just listening, if you're not watching, go ahead and turn it down. Ads coming up, and then series, hopefully not the end of the series, preview coming up in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back in Clips and Dip episode. What are we at? 144?
143. We almost
143?
we almost have a load of laundry ready for in terms of episodes.
I'm jumping ahead a little bit. My bad.
Well, you don't read the breakdown, so that makes sense.
We had a load of laundry, and I ate the Tide Pod, apparently. No, I'm looking at it right here, okay? Coming up, we're going to talk about Podcast P, as we teased earlier. I listened to the new episode today. But here in this segment, we can talk a little bit about what has to go right for the Clippers to win Game 5 based off of what we've seen so far in this series. For instance, and Chuck, we talked about it on the Clips and Double Dip the other night, post-game on Clippers Talk. I asked you what rotations you wanted to see, and one of the things we came to the conclusion of is just play Terrence Mann 35-plus minutes, play him 40 minutes, empty the clip with Terrence Mann, let him go, let him run.
We're going to see one of the biggest kind of what's up or what's happenings if Terrence Mann doesn't get over 35 minutes tomorrow. It's going to make absolutely no sense. It's potentially the final game of the season. Terrence has been lighting it up. He's been what we need him to be. There's just no reason to not play Terrence. Like, I don't know. Will, like, what do you think his minutes are going to be? I'm pulling up the stats right now and stuff, but what are your thoughts on Terrence?
Beyond the minutes, if he's not in the starting lineup, it's a failure. Like, it's a failure.
Go off.
We know what's working with this team. It even has worked with Russell Westbrook. I don't see it being a large enough detriment to the bench. I understand some of Ty's hesitancies to keep Marcus with that starting lineup were due to some of the issues that his defense and everything else creates on the bench. Great. Cut him out of the rotation then. How about that? You're facing elimination.
Yeah, get him out. Terrence is at 26 minutes per game in these playoffs, which is...
Well, then he should be playing at least 36.
He's only playing 3 more minutes per game than he did in the regular season, which is absolutely insane when you consider that we're out Paul George and Kawhi. So rotations are already cut down by 2 guys, and Marcus Morris didn't play the first 2 games. Like, we need more Terrence Mann. I don't know what else really to say. Adam, would you like to preach more from the book of man?
I would give my rib to create another Terrence Mann. I love Terrence Mann. I think they're always better when Terrence Mann is on the floor. Everybody in Clipper Nation seems to agree on that. Outsiders, there's a national narrative. If you listen to Zach Lowe and appreciate his commentary, he's identified Terrence Mann as just a winning player, making winning plays, regardless of what the stats say, those chunky box scores, as you like to put it, Chuck, sometimes from him. Regardless, he's just typically a plus out there. What was he, a -2 in a game they lost by 12? Something like that last game. He was good, and he helped swing the game back in their favor. After they were down big early, they ended up winning that first quarter. Marcus goes out, Terrence Mann goes in, and he made winning plays. He helped get the game pointed in the right direction for the Clippers, who have, shockingly, I think they've outscored. I think they're like a +24 or +26 in first quarter so far in this series through 4 games. You want to talk about changing a narrative on something that was just abysmal for them all season long, struggling to get off to good starts. They've gotten them. They have, and that makes it even more confounding that they've lost the last 3 games.
Start Terrence. Why not? The other note that I have in here is stop playing Marcus Morris at all.
Yeah.
Let's stop that. But That's not going to happen. Ty Lue said this today in the practice presser, and I'm sorry I'm laughing when I'm talking about it, but it feels like an AI generated response. He said, first of all, he's played good against Phoenix in general, but he's 5th all time amongst guys who've taken at least 100 shots in the playoffs and 3-point field goal percentage. That feels. Why does Ty Lue have this in his pocket?
I think
he
it's
knows
because
he's going to be criticized for it.
Well,
it's just like,
oh yeah. If
crazy.
he's carrying this statement,
he's been
you
so
know.
bad. Like
because after game 4, he was asked about Marcus Morris, and all he said was, because I felt like it, basically. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. So I think he wanted to come with something more substantive today. I can't defend.
It feels crazy.
The amount of field goal attempts was absurd too.
I understand giving him an opportunity like that in game 4, but when it's obviously not working and he's looking the exact same way he has the last 3 months, I said at the half on Twitter, he's a minus 14 in 14 minutes out there. I don't always trust the plus minus, but it matched the eyeball test. They made all their runs without them. The Phoenix Suns made their runs when he was on the court. He was bad. He couldn't shoot the ball. There was a play in game 3 when he came in and played a little bit, and I was watching him closely because we have speculated Marcus just doesn't look right. It may not just be an age thing because his numbers took a precipitous slide right after that game against the Los Angeles Lakers where he had the rib injury. Because that month he was still shooting 36% from 3. He wasn't awful. The month before that, he was still at 40% from 3. And then all of a sudden, since then, he's basically been at 30% from the outside.
Which feels high.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest.
It does. But I watched him in a play in game 3, not the game he started, but in game 3. There was a loose ball in the backcourt. And he went to try to pick it up, and it looked like he was. And I'm not being flippant. I'm not being sarcastic. I'm not trying to be funny about it.
You're the nice person on this pod. So
I'm just reporting on what I saw in the arena on that play as I was watching Marcus closely. It looked like he was having trouble bending over to pick up the basketball, and somebody else from the Clippers came up and got it in the backcourt instead. That's what I saw.
He was guarding Durant. That play when he fell when he was guarding Durant. That wasn't a. I just got completely shook out of my shoes fall. That I don't know, man. He did get shook, but not in the way. That's very fair. It's just like if he's starting tomorrow, there's been a lot of. I feel like if there were a word cloud for the Clippers 2022-2023 season, the word unserious would be one of the bigger words in that word cloud. If Marcus Morris starts tomorrow in what could be the Clippers' final game, it's the most unserious move of the year. I don't know.
I mean, look, he took more 3-point attempts than any other player. I understand riding with a player to a certain degree, right? Maybe not Morris.
And then he got off the ride because we did.
Yeah, given what we've seen this season, like I understand maybe not riding with Morris, but I understand in general the idea of, hey, we know what this guy is capable of. We know what he's done before. But in that game, he was given every single opportunity, right? I feel like there was no stone left unturned. If there was, any lingering old Marcus to be discovered or uncovered somewhere. And this is what we got. And I mean, it pains me to say it because I thought, I thought if he was in a good shape for this season coming into this year, I mean, that lifted the Clippers ceiling considerably. Unfortunately, where he's at right now, he lowers the floor considerably for this Clippers team. And I just don't know, I just don't know. Like if it was a performance where he had started, we did it in a limited stretch. He only had, say, 4 3. Like he took half the amount of shot attempts. He took more threes once again than any other player on the Clippers roster. He hit 1 of 8, 12.5%. I'm not banking on the reverse of that. You know what I mean? I'm not banking that if he does that again, he's suddenly going to be 6 of 8 or 7 of 8 or something otherworldly. I think right now, Marcus is what he is, and I don't know.
A complete net negative.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's something that can change with a healthy offseason, maybe dropping some more weight, maybe working on conditioning and stuff. I don't know. I can't think about that right now. All I can think about is the Clippers facing elimination. There is no way that you can feel comfortable rolling into battle. If you want to attempt to win this game, like, and playing Marcus Morris those kind of minutes, giving him those sort of opportunities.
The thing is, Game 4 was basically a must-win. Like, if you are going to win the series, you pretty much had to have it tied up.
Must wins. You had to at least split at home to keep this series alive.
You got to split it home.
And I again understand trying him because we wanted to see, okay, has something changed with the time off? Is Marcus healthier now? But when he looks exactly like he has over a 3-month sample size, and Terrence Mann comes in and gives you that lift and gives you that spark, you got to roll with him. I thought he might go to Terrence Mann to start the second half after Marcus was a minus 14 in his 14 minutes. And I'm not trying to be harsh on Marcus. Something doesn't look right.
Yeah,
it just doesn't.
He's hurt.
No,
it doesn't.
Something.
And that's why I'm saying, like, I'm not saying that this is like an indictment necessarily on the rest of his career. I think it's definitely, if the Clippers are eliminated in Game 5, it's certainly a very big question and a tough question that the Clippers have to ask themselves. But right now, where he's at, what he can provide is not enough. It's just not good enough. And I think the thing that's been so confounding and frustrating about this team all year long is every time we think we're starting to turn a corner, like with the rotations, with effort, with whatever you want, it's like 1 step forward, 3 steps back, man. We got Marcus out of the lineup. He didn't play in the first 2 playoff games. I thought that we had figured something out that was going to work. And apparently not. Like, apparently the evidence isn't strong enough. Apparently I don't know if it's just the coaching staff or if it's the locker room or like who is all calculated in those decisions. But for some reason, other people are not quite convinced yet, and I'm not sure what else it could possibly take at this point.
I mean, all I know is if he rolls out there,
here.
Oh, go ahead, Adam.
Here's what I don't get if we're still talking about Marcus here.
Yeah, go for it.
The game that he was taken out of the rotation was against the Pelicans in an almost must-win situation. At the time, we thought to stay out of the play-in. Not the final game against the Pelicans, but the Saturday before at home. And Coach Lue, who I love, but I've said all season long, Coach Lue in the playoffs, it's going to be a different animal. You'll see those rotations tighten. And for the most part, he's made some great moves. Everybody else said in Game 1, you can't keep playing Russell Westbrook. He's stuck with him. It has paid dividends in a huge way. And it is the biggest reason, really, the Clippers are still, have a fighting chance because Russell Westbrook is played.
And that's a huge credit to Ty Lue, right? Like,
that's what I'm saying.
For his guys. He rides for his guys. And I think that that's great but there is a double-edged sword to that. Like, there is the flip side of that.
Well, and also what's so tough is that it wasn't working for Batum at all. Like, Batum
offensively,
it wasn't working because he couldn't get into a rhythm. He said you just kind of stand in the corner. Defensively, he's been phenomenal, which is why it's like, then put him out there for that side.
Well, we
need the firepower though. Like, we can't have guys who are unable to contribute on both ends of the floor against this team.
They scored 125 points in Game 3 with Nicholas Batum playing minutes. I don't think the firepower isn't also having Marcus Morris out there going 1 for 8 from the outside. The firepower would be Robert Covington, who has had the best 3-point percentage on the team since March. His last 12 games, he has shot 61% from 3. Robert Covington. So it's not like you don't have options.
With the thing with Rocco that gets me, which is funny, and Will, we've talked about this. Rocco has been bad on one-on-one defense lately. He's been bad at it. It's been really bad. He gets blown by. But if Ty Lue's doing these these things where it's like, hey, we're not going to be able to beat him on defense, we might as well try and get some offense out there. All things considered, in the current version, Rocco should be over Morris because at least Rocco has some track record.
Well, and he is a better defender around the rim. I'll give him that too. Like, if you want to run out those 4-guard lineups, it makes a whole hell of a lot more sense to do it with Rocco than to do it with Morris at this point.
He's a much better defender than Marcus Morris. He's getting deflections. He may be slow of foot. Everyone talks about his one-on-one defense. Okay, he's still competed against Kevin Durant out there. Yeah. He's still much better right now. I don't know what's happening with Marcus. What I can't understand is, and I love Coach Lue, and I hope he's here for another decade because I believe in him and I believe the way he goes in rotations and has that coaching advantage over the guy across the way from him on the court. Because look, Monty Williams, I was listening to a Suns podcaster earlier today talking about the shortcomings of Monty Williams and how it took them losing Game 1 basically because of that stretch where he had Devin Booker on the floor with 4 role players,
he got
something that he had
crushed.
been doing all season, though, and was getting killed. So every coach has their blind spot. Every
Of course.
coach has their issue. But my problem is, and this was the game that Marcus was pulled after this from being in the rotation, that game against the Pelicans. It was against Brandon Ingram, and Marcus Morris was out there starting defender against Brandon Ingram. How can you keep talking about having a defensive mentality to start ball games and Marcus Morris is on Brandon Ingram? And you know what happened? Look, he can't guard him right now. Not many can. Marcus Morris definitely can't in the condition he's in. He gets cooked on him, and then they try to move him to Trey Murphy III. He ends up getting hot from the outside. He hits 10 3-pointers, and the Clippers could never shut the faucet off after that. They lost that game by 21 points after a hot shooting first quarter where they just went right at Marcus Morris. I'm not blaming him, and I understand it to a degree with Coach Lue. He trusts him. He's loyal to his guys. But in this case, backs against the wall, I just want to see Terrence Mann get 35, 40 minutes.
So this is what my next point to kind of talk about for how the Clippers can force Game 6 is the starters can't leak as many points as they've been leaking. I know it's going to be hard for the starters to win their minutes, obviously. But if you look at the team's plus-minus data, the worst offenders are the guys who've started. Norm is at 0, so he's literally a net neutral. But Marcus Morris, who started 2 games, and for all we know, is starting tomorrow. I don't know. There's nothing really to lead us to believe that he won't. He's a team worst minus 13. Zoo, who's been rough, minus 9.5. Nico minus 9. Russ minus 6.5. Gordon minus 5. So like the Clippers starters, I think Joseph Wright Ward said this. If the Clippers starters can lose by like just 5, like 5 to 7, then this bench has a chance to kind of make things happen. But it all depends on what starting lineup we get, because it's impossible. Oh, we haven't even talked about that.
With Campaign coming back, I think that changes things. But I would say prior to that, Monty Williams did adjust his bench. But I would say, like, if the starters could keep it in just sub 10, right? Like just a sub 10 differential, I think your bench can, over the course of, however many games this ends up going, can still win you those minutes. Because I do think the talent is that deep.
Yeah, that's a good call.
But that changes a little bit with Campaign back. I think that's going to be a hard cover.
I forgot that
he can't cover anyone, though. Attack Campaign. Go right at him.
Yeah.
He can't guard anyone. Bones is a better defender than Campaign.
Yeah. We
that's a fact.
We just can't trade buckets though. I feel like that has been some of the emphasis in some of the closing lineups too, is sort of like bucket getters when it's like, okay, guys, we're actually down like 3 possessions.
Right.
Just trading buckets.
Can someone get us
to work from here on out?
Because that's what they wanted towards the end of Game 4. You could kind of tell, right? Like if the Clippers weren't hitting threes, the Suns were perfectly content to let the Clippers get to the rim and get their layup, and it would be good. And then the Suns would come down and pretty much have an exact answer for it. So yeah, Campaign, he's probable. He's probably coming back on that one.
What's interesting, a lot of those negatives in there from the starters, it's happening in the second half because they are winning the first quarter.
True.
They've won every first quarter, I believe, so far in this series. But as time goes on, and this is kind of the battle and race against time against this Suns team, as the game goes on, you get a larger sample size and the talent just overcomes the Clippers eventually, the talent discrepancy. And the same thing is going to happen in the series that way because they're building up a little bit more continuity, a little bit more familiarity, chemistry, and meshing a little bit more out there. The Phoenix Suns are, even though, yes, they're playing heavy minutes, I'm not sure in the first round with just having 2 days off that it's going to affect them that much in Game 5. Could they be DOA against the Denver Nuggets? Should they move on to the second round? Maybe. I think it catches up with them eventually, but I don't know if the Clippers are going to be the team to benefit from it enough.
Yeah, your boy Greg asked on the stream, do we think it's too late, even if you put Terrence Mann in the starting lineup? It depends.
Not to win a game.
Not to win
a game, but to Adam's point, we talked about coming into this series, especially down Paul George, and before even Kawhi went down, it was in the Clippers' best interest to if they were going to win this one, to get out of it as early as possible before this Suns team really had a chance to get together. And now, I mean, you're looking at optimistically 7 games if the Clippers are to make a rally in this one. And I mean, that raises serious questions, even if we get one of our 2 stars back, right? Like with that much more continuity, sure, it'll be a different Clippers team. And I'm not saying that it wouldn't obviously be a huge advantage. There's no way to say that it wouldn't, but that much more time for this Suns team that had all of 8 games prior to the playoffs, that's a huge difference. I mean, them playing essentially double the amount of games now, playoff tested, is a different team than we were looking at coming into this series.
And so who's going to cool off on the Suns? Torrey Craig has to cool off at some point, I think.
I don't know about that.
But that's why I said I think. Like, how many points do the Clips got to score to get this dub? Because I had the line at 115. If the Clippers can't get near 115, it's tough.
I think probably 120 minimum, which is not easy to do, even against a Suns team that hasn't been amazing defensively. They gave up 124 points in game 3. The Clippers were able to score on them. It was about slowing them down mostly in the second half, and they just weren't able to during stretches in the fourth quarter and third quarter when they were taking free throws, a ton of them. It's hard.
I want to go back to the stars a little bit because we haven't talked a ton about Zoo. And Zoo last game was getting, part of it rightfully so, a bunch of hate. He finished with 4 and 9, 24 minutes, 22 minutes on 420 the day before. But it's just, he doesn't look the same. I don't know if it's just playoff basketball, but he's a starter anyway, so he's used to playing starters. Like, is it fatigue? What is up? Because he's not helping us after we argued with Carl Tart. That he was. He's a top 10 regular season center, I think, but right now it feels like the playoffs, or maybe it's just his version of the Clippers. Maybe he's tired of yet another, absence filled, so to speak, postseason run for the Clippers.
I just think he's overthinking things too much. There's too much on his plate, responsibility wise, on both ends, and it's getting the best of him.
I wish he had more responsibility on offense.
But then they have 8 turnovers trying to get the basketball to him the other night. It hasn't worked out. He's having a rough, after game 1, he's just had a rough last 3 games.
I don't know. Will, how do you see Zoo getting back on track? Because he's got to have a double-double, right? Like, if we're going to win, if we're going to take it to game 6, he's got to be in double-double.
I mean, I think it's been really hard on him, just like some of the communication and maybe not getting the ball in the most advantageous spot. A lot of new guys. He's got to be better on that end, and I think that'll translate defensively. I do want to contradict one thing that Adam talked about the Clippers needing to score 120 plus. I really loved what the Clippers did in game 3, where, and granted, some of it, the turnovers especially, were not part of the game. We're not part of the game plan, but like really mucking things up and slowing things down. And it was like 51 all at the first half, I believe, something like that. That is an approach that is going to be very effective for the Clippers, especially like if they can make those shots super hard. You play out the math on the mid-range stuff. You're able to keep the fouls lower than they have been. And that's the approach that we saw Ty Lue take with the Cavaliers and undermanned against the Warriors. But how sustainable is that? Like with the level of defenders that we have, I don't really know. But
it wasn't even sustainable for an entire game because they ended up giving they gave up 120. They gave up 129.
Adam's furious.
After 51 at the half, they gave up 129. So they gave up 70 in the second half. I mean, you're right. That is the approach. They played a great first half. I'm not saying they can't do it defensively. I'm just saying realistically, they're probably going to have to outscore them, and that means at least getting to 120.
Yeah, I mean, that makes total sense. Like if we get a lockdown defensive performance, I would love that. But I don't. Ty Lue is, I don't think that's the rotations we have in store, unfortunately. So what's our picks, boys? Who's going to be the player of the game for this one? Who's going to take us to game 6?
I'm ready for Nico to have one good game. I'm
on offense.
I'm going to put it all on the line. I'm going to say Nico has one good offensive game in him.
So he's putting up 12?
15.
Okay.
He's going to have to play more than 6 minutes for that to happen. I'm just saying, like, people are bagging on Nico. It's like, okay, he played 6 minutes. He took one shot.
Right.
Yeah.
He's 1 for 10 in the series. It's not like he's taken a ton of shots. So I'm not that concerned about him. Of course, he's got to get him up. But if Marcus is going to play more minutes than Nico and Rocco combined,
Oh God,
it's gonna be
Nico's 1
difficult.
for 10. Marcus is 1 for 8.
yeah, that's actually.
I'm giving a
true,
thumbs up for
sadly.
one and a thumbs down for one for our
Yeah.
audio listeners listening to this later.
So, Adam, your pick is Marcus Morris.
I did not say that. I'm going Terrence Mann.
Okay, how many minutes?
38.
I hope 40, but I'll settle for 33. I'll settle for 33 minutes from Terrence Mann. He gets 20 points.
Shit,
He
but
plays the first 48 straight.
I'm down. Let's do it. Let's just run 5. So you're going Terrence Mann. I'm gonna go.
Who's, by the way, is shooting 54% from 3 in the series, Terrence Mann.
Well, some would argue that's actually bad to make more shots. I would go. A hot take: Ty Lue. Ty Lue surprise performer of the night tomorrow. We're not going to see Marcus Morris. We're going to see Robert Covington use the normal doses. It's not going to be weird, and we're going to see, a tight leash on when things aren't happening for some certain guys. So I'm going Ty Lue, performer of the night. Also, because he literally has to be. We need Russell Westbrook to have a 30-point triple-double. I can't believe I'm saying that as in April as a Clippers fan. We need the Russ 30-point triple-double. We need the best game that Ty Lue has coached all season because we don't have anybody. And we need Marcus Morris to not play. I don't know how likely. Really, the last one seems like the hardest one.
He said he's got a few more wrinkles, Coach Lue, so it's now or never.
I guess here's the new wrinkle. Musa, Plum, Zoo, Terrence, Rocco. Who says no to that lineup? Could be the last game of the season. Who says
I
no?
wouldn't mind seeing Brandon Boston get a couple minutes.
Amir
honestly.
Coffee. Why not?
Well, if you need scoring, I don't know. It's irrational. There's not much evidence on Brandon Boston this season. If things get out of hand early, we may see some wonky lineups.
I'll tell you what I don't want to see is the early white flag.
Yeah.
If things get out of hand early, I do not want to see the early white flag. I'm not saying we'd see it from the players.
Phoenix is favored by 12, by the way. It's a big
12?
number. It is a big number. They're expecting them to close things out because the other side of it is they're trying to get rest before Denver.
Yeah, they
know there's
win.
a sense of urgency to get this series over with.
Damn. Well, I hope Bones and Brandon Boston Jr. play together so we can have probably the wonkiest height to weight ratio in the history of NBA backcourts between Bones and Brandon Boston Jr.
I'd love to see Bones go off and get another 20.
Why not?
They need it.
We need like 3 people to score 20 tomorrow. So we think the Clips are going to win though, right? It's going to come back. We're all going to be at Staples on Thursday.
I'll see you guys there.
Losing our damn minds. All right, let's go. Coming up, we're going to be talking a very weird interaction on the Paul George podcast. We got ads coming up, so if they've been loud for you, go ahead and turn it down. Ads, and then we got to talk podcast P coming up in 3, 2, 1.
All right, so we're back in on Clips and Dip. We're live over on YouTube. That's at Clippers Podcast, and on Twitter. That's at Clippers Pod. We talked a little bit about what the Clippers need to do to avoid elimination in Game 5 versus the Suns. But we got to talk a little bit about an off-color sort of interaction that happened on the Podcast P podcast. It ended up getting tweeted out, and then I believe subsequently got deleted.
They deleted
Correct me
it,
if I'm
yeah.
incorrect there. But Charles, why don't you break this down for us? What's going on in the Podcast P podcast cinematic universe? You know that I'm not listening.
So they had a segment where they were talking about like talent and like what talent means.
It was specifically about Lonzo Ball. I do know this much.
Yes. And one of Paul George's co-hosts was arguing that staying healthy was a talent. To Paul George, which Paul George, you can see he's like, it's not a talent. He kind of gives him a smirk. And he's like, it is a talent. And then Paul George goes on to say that staying healthy is a work ethic thing, which I'm also like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, because I don't think Paul George and Kawhi don't work hard. It was just an example, I think, of kind of why I think the Paul George podcast was like kind of an insane idea.
Oh,
'Cause
come on.
You get stuff like this. He's talking about how like injuries are a work ethic thing. That's crazy. His own co-host is like, no, man, it's a talent thing. And Paul George is like, oh, yeah, I'm not talented enough. That's why I've had all these injuries.
No, man, like the majority of injuries are just like such a
freak random shit.
It's just such a freak happenstance. Like all the stuff that ends up being like the most impactful is just some kind of little thing that could happen at literally any moment of any game. And, you know, it just doesn't end up rolling your way. And the Lonzo thing is like that whole knee surgery saga. I mean, that's insane. Like that's such bizarre happenstance. There's no level of talent that can prepare for that. There's no work ethic that's going to get you around that. I mean, it's just like,
well, if you're saying
like
talent,
physiological, what's the word I'm looking for?
Body stuff.
I'm gonna find it. I'll look it up.
Physiology.
Human physiology. Thank you for the assist, Adam Oslin.
I'll find it.
It just is what it is. You know, there's limitations to the human body, and I think that there's nothing that's subverting that.
Do they mean talent as in there's some talent stuff you're just born with, it's innate, and some guys are less injury prone than others just by happenstance?
They touched on that, yes, but that was not his, because that I believe in. There are some guys who are just like you've seen guys just get destroyed and they just pop right back up. Like, yeah, I'm totally fine.
There's certainly like styles of play that you know probably lend themselves. You know,
it's the John Wall or it's the Derrick Rose thing, right?
Yeah,
everyone knew that the way he landed, there was going to be some rough knee stuff. And
I mean, there's like probably styles of play that are a little bit more.
But Russ has been like as reckless as you could be, reckless abandon going to the hoop, and he's on the other side of it. He had one knee injury when it happened with Patrick Beverley, and he's still so freaking explosive.
Yeah. So it's just a freak accident thing. It's just like, oh no. We got a comment from YouTube that said 51% chance Ty is gone next year. I think 51 is actually fair.
We're not going to do our like post-mortem on the Clippers thing yet.
Because we still got games.
Yeah. Like as like a little sneak preview, I mean, it seems like in a lot of situations when things aren't working with players, it's a whole lot easier to, you know, pat yourself on the back and hire a new coach than it is to truly clean house. So that's all that I'm going to say on that for right now.
Blow it up.
But sneak peek Updike.
Yeah, damn. Okay.
The tease.
There were a bunch of Clippers fans that were upset that Houston hired Udoka. But I don't know if that was ever. Yes, that one. But I don't know if that was ever going to happen. I don't think the Clippers were ever in the hunt for that for Ime. Like, I'm just not.
It's not the market where you can do something like that. Like Houston, I'm not saying is like the smallest market, but it's not the same cultural climate as Los Angeles is, and that something like that is. I just
Ballmer doesn't want to deal with that.
Yeah, I just don't think that sort of PR would really quiet down here.
Yeah, I think again, Ballmer doesn't want to
and once again, I don't know all the details of the case. I'm not like making any statements on anything. I'm just saying that is the sort of thing that would and could sink a Los Angeles fan base.
Yeah, totally. Period. I mean, we talked.
Adam disagrees.
I don't disagree.
Adam says, "Whatever happened to believe in men?"
We're done with the lives.
All right. Do we have any closing thoughts as Clippers fans? You know, tuck themselves in, light their prayer candles, sage their apartments or homes if they're doing real well. Before we get to potentially the final game of the Clippers season.
They need a performance like they had taken on KD and the Warriors in that Game 5 at Oracle Arena, where they were supposed to get run over. They were supposed to get – I bet the line was huge that game too. Everybody expected the Golden State Warriors, after letting the Clippers come back down 31 in Game 2, they were just going to stomp on them. And they snuck out another win in their building. They can do it. They can win one game with these guys. Do I think they can win the series if Kawhi or Paul George doesn't come back, win 3 in a row? No, but they can win Game 5. They can do it. Especially if you put the pressure on them. Get a lead again in the first quarter. Get off to a quick start. Make the Phoenix Suns feel the pressure. Kevin Durant was claking stuff off the side of the backboard in Game 3. when they had no business only being up a couple of points against the Clippers in that game. When it was tight, Suns looked tight out there. They didn't look great.
Will, can you add to that? Are you hyped? Are the Clippers going to get this thing done?
I'm hyped. They're
All
going
right.
to get it done.
Will says he is hyped and they're going to get it done. Well, we will have a double dip for y'all over on AM 570, I believe. Adam will have the covered pre and post game. Tripod on Wednesday. Not sure if we'll be able to, get all of our thoughts depending whatever happens tomorrow. But we're doing a tripod on Wednesday for sure. Hoping that one's a Game 6 preview, if I'm being honest. That's just me. Don't know about these guys. But yeah, we hope we hope everyone's doing well. Will, where can these wonderful people review us?
So you can review us over on the podcast app, also over on Spotify now. If you gave us a review, hey, it really helps us out. 5 stars would be appreciated, but we'll read your review on air. Either way, you can check us out on either one of those podcasting platforms. We're also on Google Podcasts. We're on Stitcher. We're on Deezer. We're on Amazon Music. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can listen to the show. Also, don't forget to check us out over on YouTube. That's at Clippers Podcast. And chop it up with us anytime. It could be Cancun vibes in like a day. Over at Clippers Pod on Twitter. So
is that the tease?
Yeah, that's the tease. All right. We'll talk to everybody tomorrow and in full on Wednesday. And as always, let's go Clips.